Right, here's page 2 or part 2 of my quotes for Inspectacles. So, do you want to pause and screenshot this quick if you want? Alright, so I'm going to run through it and show you how. This is my first run through where I've picked out quotes from my book. Now I'm going to zoom in and see, of all the ones I've picked, which ones link together in terms of finding the human and their suffering. That's the thing I'm looking at, okay? Because that's the reason why Priestley wrote the play. Alright, zooming in now. So you've got Eric, who is obviously infantilized, which basically means that he is treated like a baby. And I like just the idea of this. He's not the only person in this society trying to escape. This is a little ironic because you actually have, if you think about it, this theme or central idea of being trapped. But several people here are trapped. Sheila is trapped. She doesn't get to make very many choices. Eric is trapped because he's just belittled by his father repeatedly. And then, of course, gets the girl pregnant and he can't marry her. So he can't do the responsible thing even though he tries. Then you get Gerald, who is trapped, and we'll see a bit later, also robbed of choice. And we have, don't forget, Edna, who hardly anyone talks about, but we'll get to her in a minute. Just think this idea of everything about Eric in the beginning of the play is about him being drunk and him being repeatedly drunk. And to me, he's stuck. He's panicked. He's very, very much hiding the truth. He's disguising it because he's very, very isolated. He's very alone, which you wouldn't normally expect from a rich household. And yet, I like how Priestley doesn't simply go, only the girl is suffering. He's actually quite human about, there's more than just the poor is suffering here. It's actually a really hard way to live, is what Priestley's saying. So I just like how Eric keeps just disagreeing with his father. You could have paid them, you could have kept her on. He just points out that the dad has got so many options. And of course, Mr. Burling gets annoyed by this, but ironically, all of this is very responsible behavior. I also like, you could have. Now, this is quite a subtle method here. Let's write it down a sec. This is a modal verb. Do you know what that is? Modal verb is when you've got the little extra verbs to go along the main verb, and it changes what the verb is doing. So you could have paid them. Look how different this is. You didn't pay them. You might have paid them. You can't pay them. You may as well pay them. Those are all modal verbs. So it's not that Mr. Burling can't pay them. Mr. Burling knows he should have paid them, and Eric says you could have paid them. But in Mr. Burling's speech, he goes, I won't pay them. And those are modal verbs. They change the meaning of the verb. They change how the verb is being used and what its meaning is. And it's just such a small thing, but it's obviously life-altering for somebody like Ava Smith. I just love this stage direction. Now remember, think to yourself, what's the most common stage direction for Mr. Burling? Yes, angrily. Angrily. So now this is miserably. So the men are both responding on an emotional level, but the emotion is very different and it reflects their values. So when Mr. Burling's just angry, he values his reputation and his power and he hates being questioned. But Eric, he's finally caught and now he's got to confess. And we're just reminded of all of those, all of those tier 1 childhood words. When you're doing tag, you play the game tag. Well, Eric's been caught now and he's been forced to replay or relive what's happened. Now, there are a lot of quotes you can pick. There are a lot of quotes you can pick. I thought that this one was a less obvious quote because it links very much later on with when Gerald says this. It's the whole installing as if she's a washing machine, but we'll come to him in a minute. I like this because the poor, they're not memorable because they don't have wealth. They're consumables almost. Let's write that down. The poor are like tools to use and discard. Discard is throw away. They're also, what did I say, consumables, which means you eat it and then you finish it. You could have said disposable. All of these are metaphors, your own metaphors that can use to explain. So technically I could say verb, but if I panic and I can't remember if it's a verb or a noun, then just pull away and talk about the theme that she's disposable, that she's worthless. All right? So don't get stressed about nouns and verbs, because the nouns and verbs are often a theme as well, all right, or a recurring idea, or a repeated idea. The dashes here are just really great, because that shows that he's actually upset. And again, Gerald, look, I'm going to come to Gerald in a minute, but look how many more dashes he has. Now, interestingly, Eric doesn't talk about the baby with the dashes. He talks about the death of the girl with the dashes. Yeah? Whereas here, Eric's talking about the girl, but there's more. So, now, Eric does say, oh, I didn't love her, she didn't love me, and she wouldn't get married and all that. You can say all of those things. But I like the dashes because you hesitate. It shows that you are not talking as you normally do. And then, of course, I agree with Sheila. He tells his parents, I'm ashamed of you. That's a very, very big emotion. Means you have disappointed me. You have let me down. You are a poor replica as a father. And we must remember that the fail rate of these parents is 100%. Or actually, let's give them 98% because there is food on the table and there's a roof over their children's heads, but the roof may as well be a cage because that's how their children are forced to comply. The girl is dead and we all helped kill her. Again, notice how he's not using her name, which really, it's brutal. I liked how Eric repented, but there's still a massive issue there. Massive issue. She's dehumanized significantly. We all helped to kill her. Crime. And yet this reminds us of Mr. Burling was saying, you're the only one who's committed a crime, the crime of theft, of stealing stuff. Sheila, again, she's just so infantilized. It's the same thing, isn't it? It's the same thing, except she's trying to escape through marriage. It's the same thing. The first thing she asks about the girl is whether the girl is pretty. And this, of course, betrays society's toxic standards. Yeah, let's write that down. Betrays toxic standards. Because, of course, external beauty is the most important thing. External beauty and masks and facades and the appearance of wealth. The external is much more valued than the internal. She confesses, though. It was me. And there you go. Oh, well done, children. Miserably, miserably. Do you see? This is deliberate repetition. Deliberate repetition from Priestley. What is the verb at the end that's quoted for, the adverb quoted for them at the end when they think they've gotten away with it? Look at that. Triumphantly. Triumphantly. And then right across down to Gerald. Oh no, Gerald. You said it. Oh no. This is a lot like the witches when Macbeth copies Fair is Foul. Yeah, same thing. It's tainted. He's absolutely tainted and spoiled by how he's been reared as a leader. He's been built up as a leader, this Gerald. But let's finish off over here. So Sheila is horrified when she hears what her mother has done. Mother, I think it was cruel and vile. That's what an adult says to a child when the child steps on somebody else's sandcastle. So this is almost like reverse parenting, because it's Sheila telling the parent off. And then here comes out my favorite quote: stop pretending. You don't live in a bubble. I just think it's such an easy quote. It's a command. So it starts with an imperative verb, but just say command. She's giving them an instruction. So she's in a position of power. So a command. Whether you say command, imperative verb, or instruction, it's getting you 1 mark. So you don't get layers of marks based on the quality of your method. You just pick the method that fits, see? Now you get really, really high marks for linking the quotes together to show how they're overlapping to form the message. And by now you can see there's lots of copying and pasting from Priestley, and that is all deliberate. He's not making it by mistake. All right, Sheila says, if I could help her now, and the inspector harshly rebukes her. You can't. It's too late. She's dead. Brutal. And yet, that's the best discipline you could give anyone. The facts. Notice here, short sentences, minor sentences, yeah, and simple sentences. The inspector represents the facts, and you can't escape the facts. The facts are the facts. But of course, Mr. Burling and Gerald and Mrs. Burling, they try to skew the facts in their favor, or they try to hide them. And of course, the light is now on, the door is now open, so that's not going to work. At the very end, when they're all thinking that they've gotten away with this trick, that they've all been fooled, Sheila says, oh, so nothing really happened. There's nothing to learn, to be sorry for. There's nothing to learn. We can all go on behaving just as we did. I love the repetition of nothing, because this is a real warning from Priestley, is that if people continue to view their behavior as nothing important, the poor will keep dying. Children will keep dying. And that is inexcusable, unforgivable. So this very, very clear warning from Priestley that this is a very dangerous reaction that the adults in power are having. All right, Gerald. So I'd love to like Gerald. And in the middle of the play, I kind of do. So there's nothing really obvious to talk about Gerald from the beginning. He just agrees with everything. So he's completely, I'm going to write this one, compliance. So he agrees with all the adults, regardless of what they're saying, and he's complicit. Because he sees what's happening. Oops, that's 1 too extra. Let's delete these. Complicit means you are part of the problem. Because Gerald is like Eric. Now Eric goes, oh, you could have paid them. But Gerald goes, you can't have people like that in the society or whatever. Gerald just copies and pastes the adults. He's like a little model replica. Let's write that. Replica. But then, of course, it all completely falls apart when he realizes that he knows Daisy Renton / Ava Smith. And this is why I've drawn the sun here. Because It's almost like here when Sheila's got a son, she finds her power. She steps into her voice, yeah? And she draws a line in the sand and she goes, no more. She now lays down the gauntlet. Gerald, he's got nowhere to step. He is not like Eric. He's been given a taste of power. And for whatever reason, he chooses to just keep going with it. So this sun represents the time in his life when he actually was free to feel love. But the cloud here represents the life he's going to be forced to imitate. Yeah? Forced to imitate what looks like a respectable rich boy's life. Now, this is the problem, is that he can't have this girl. She's from the different class, right? So we all know that. So when I'm doing historical context, I'm commenting on that. I just say it exactly like that. I don't have to go during Edwardian times. I don't need a separate sentence. I would literally go, Gerald's fate here is quite cruel to him because he falls in love with someone who is forbidden. She doesn't qualify as a good human because she's poor. So you can either say he disposes of her or she is stripped away from him, because it's a little bit of both. I mean, it does look like Gerald is making active choices, but that could be for several reasons. Don't just vilify him, because that's an easy get out of free answer. You could say he had no other choice. You could say he was just using her and he knew it. You could say that he's quite a realist and he knows it can only be temporary, so he deliberately tries to protect himself. Or you can say he hides it all. He falls in love. He'll never recover from this love. He'll also never match it again in his life. And so he resigns himself to having this imitation of a life afterwards. Now, if you say all four of those things, that's a really high mark, because Gerald is not an easy person to extrapolate on. He's tricky. We don't know enough about him. We see snippets of how his behavior changes. And this is very telling, because I read this because of the dashes, because of how upset he gets that he did love her, but he can't have her. And unlike Romeo and Juliet, the boy doesn't die for the girl. What he does is he gives the ring to the next girl, the girl on the approved breeding partners list. Now this is interesting because he corrects Mrs. Burling. He goes, yeah, Eric does drink. Actually, he drinks quite a lot. Actually, I've seen him a lot. He does drink. And again, this is the one part I like about Eric, is that he doesn't mind being honest. Whereas Mr. Burling is not honest at all. He just goes, no, no, no. And he's not really reliable in any sense. That I like about Gerald, because it's truthful. Just like this reaction is truthful. But again, we've got, I installed her in the apartment and I ended it. So you've got that dehumanization. Should we write that down? Dehumanization. You could say she's treated like an object. Same thing. It's just that you've got tier 2 vocabulary that's more sophisticated over there. Just choose whichever one you want, yeah? I think this, for me, is one of the best quotes in the play. What does Ava Smith want? What does she want? It's a good question. What do you want? I mean, it's a hard question to answer. Ava Smith knows the answer. She just wants to not be alone. She feels alone. She feels lost. She feels trapped. And by talking, yeah, you can say talking doesn't fix anything. But you know what? It makes you feel like you're not alone. And that's better than being alone. So it doesn't solve stuff, although then again maybe it does. You're going to have to think about that. So again, this is just a verb, but you could say the idea of talking, as in confessing, is a massive message in this play, because people talk all the time behind the scenes about how the poor are complaining. They don't want to talk about how the poor are suffering. They're very blind to that, but they can hear the complaints, and they use it in their discussions to comment about how silly the poor are, etc., and so forth. This part here, oh dear. I mean, you can read into that. I mean, Gerald, is he really that dismissive? He did have to leave the room to compose himself. I think this to me is a mask. Everything's all right now. How about the ring? I think he's masking there. I think he's putting on that facade. I think he's feigning confidence, because I think he has a broken heart. You can't be this upset and then this chilled in the space of 20 minutes. Edna, okay, so at any point in the play, I mean, she's your silent victim. She's the next person who's going to die if nothing is done, if nothing changes. So all of these nothings over here, they link directly to Edna's life, because she is literally standing in the room, alongside the room, just behind the door, and she's serving the very people who are making her life a living hell. Just like when Eric says it was hell. This is hell. I like the idea that they compare it to hell, because hell means endless suffering and no one hears your cry of help. Isn't that true here though? So I mean, as a metaphor, it's just so straightforward. And yet people go to great lengths to try and avoid hell, or to, because it's uncomfortable, isn't it? And yet the rich force, the society forces people into this state actively, deliberately, and repetitively. So you can argue the society is hellish to live in. That would be a really great line for any conclusion. So you can read here. I mean, there's a lot you can say. Ava Smith. I'm going to delete. So Alice Gray is the name from the film. She calls herself Mrs. Burling in the book, which is why the real Mrs. Burling gets so upset. I thought, if you ever think of daisy wrens, daisies are a weed, right? Like, when they grow in the grass along the pavement. So this is just an interesting symbolism here. So it's just a little flower, right? It's a weed. But reeds are robust. They are resilient. They are determined to find life. They are tough. They're difficult to kill. And they recur. They're everywhere. Now think about on your walk to school, for example, in the last little while, or during spring or summer, how many little daisies do you see, or buttercups do you see in the grass? It's almost countless, depending on where you're walking. If you don't see them on your school walk, maybe when you go onto a park. And if you've ever looked in the grass, they're literally everywhere. And that's the poor. They are everywhere, because suffering is everywhere. So to be blind to it, you have to be really, really, really quite blind. You have to deliberately not be looking, because it's very, very obvious. The irony though is that they're beautiful. And they're so easy to grow. They're such some simple things. If you pick one, what happens to it? Have you picked one before? to make like a crown on people's heads, they wilt very quickly. There's not a kind of plant that you could pick and then put in a vase. They don't last that way. You have to help them where they are by watering them more. But even if you don't water them, it takes a long time for them to die. So it's this prolonged suffering, and of course they're discarded in society as a pest. And yet it's a most beautiful little, it's a gift of nature. Anyway, so here you go. You've got all of these. Look at all of this positive vocabulary. I mean, just positive adjectives, really. You can say positive semantic field with negative semantic field. The thing I like what Priestley's done here is he goes, a girl has died, and then he does this. A girl has died. So the play begins with a girl has died, and it ends with a phone call saying the girl has died. So that is a circular narrative. Let's write that quick. Circular narrative. If you don't want to say circular narrative, just go the beginning line and the end line is repeated. Just say that. Okay, so don't stress about remembering these big things. If they're intimidating, just make them smaller for yourself. All right. So here, Gerald says, she knew it couldn't last. There's couldn't. The modal verb. Do you remember? You could have paid her. He could have kept her on. She knew it couldn't last. This modal verb is easily changed because Mr. Burling did not pay her, but he could have paid her. She knew it could last if the rules were changed, but because the rules are not changed, it couldn't. So the modal verb again, just if you wanted something more sophisticated and precise to analyze, the repetition of could and couldn't. It implies choice. That's what it does. It implies choice. It implies that it could have been different. And again, that links directly to if nothing changes, then bad things will continue to happen. And they absolutely shouldn't, because not a girl didn't just die. A pregnant girl died. And that's a symbol of future. You can't do that. I mean, you're gonna destroy the human race. So the inspector said she'd been turned down and turned out too many times. This was the end. So the Burlings broke her. I just like the metaphor. They broke her just like a washing machine breaks. That's what the Burlings did to her life. They broke her. And again, go right back to part 1. Childhood vocabulary. You broke it. You stole it. You broke it. What would a parent say to a child? You break something, you fix it. Or they'll give you the lecture, you can't get that fixed. It was the only one. How dare you? You're going to remember this. You must feel really guilty. That's the message that a lot of standard parents give to children when they break something. They tell you, be more responsible. So you can see here how easy it is to remember. They installed her, they broke her, play, pretend, share, steal. These are all verbs that link a semantic field, a pattern of childish words. And it reflects the fact that the adults are playing games with these people's lives. And then, of course, the inspector says there are millions and millions of Ava Smiths. There you go. So the damage is significant. You're not just hurting one. You treated her if she was an animal. I prefer doing the worse than an animal, really, a washing machine. And here he says this as well, lovely list. It's very brutal, it's very blunt, it's very clear. You can't misunderstand this. The solution to this is talking. And that's, again, everyone can do that. Everyone can do that. It's not a tool that is beyond people. You just need time and you need to care. And Priestley's saying, we don't do that. So again, Inspector says, a nice little promising life and a nasty mess someone's made out of it. Mr. Burling has the same criticism in the beginning, saying, a nice little engagement party we were having, a nice little celebration, and a nasty mess you've made out of it. And so the inspector twists it and goes, actually, now again, objectified, it's a mess. What would an adult tell a child to do when he's made a mess? Yeah, I can hear you yelling it out. Clean it up. That's what an adult would say. Clean it up. Fix it. That's a standard adult response. And there's your message. All right, that is part 2.